Welcome, everyone, to a very special edition of In the Sulky this evening. We are joined by Meadowlands Chairman Jeff Gural. And big news this week, both houses of the New Jersey legislature passed the referendum language to put the question of allowing 2 casinos in North Jersey on the November ballot. This is a huge step for a possible casino at the Meadowlands and the closest we've ever been.
Yeah, I think that this is the first step, but this is a step that is necessary because the law in New Jersey is clear. Casinos are only allowed in Atlantic City. So the first thing that has to happen is we have to change the Constitution to allow, and the way it's written basically is the law would allow 2 casinos a minimum of 72 miles away from Atlantic City. Doesn't say where else. That's the only, and both. They would have to be in 2 different counties. So that's all we know.
And this referendum has to pass in November on the ballot. I've seen polls, Jeff, that say, oh, it's slam dunk, no problem. I've seen other polls, we're not so sure if it'll pass. What's your gut reaction?
I haven't seen any polls that make it a slam dunk. I certainly would feel better about that. We did our own polling, and basically, if you just ask the question, are you in favor of adding casinos in the north, the answer would be no. But if you ask the question, are you in favor of adding casinos, and the Meadowlands would pay $400 or $500 million in tax revenue, and a significant portion would go to rebuild Atlantic City, and it would help the horse industry. When we get to that point, it would pass narrowly, like 53-47. So the trick is we've got to be able to get that message out.
And that means an extensive advertising campaign. I would guess a lot of television, a lot of print. That's probably going to cost you upwards of $20 million just to get that done.
Absolutely. But further complicating it, the law basically doesn't allow us to bid for a casino license. It restricts the casino license bidders to those people who have casino licenses and are actively running a casino in Atlantic City, of which there are only 6. So there are 6 companies that legally could bid on it. And then the way the law is written, if after 2 months, once the bids are due, if there's no bids from those people, then it becomes open to anybody.
Well, with the location you control here at the Meadowlands with the racetrack, I would guess your phone has to be ringing off the hook with these guys in Atlantic City. I mean, it just makes so much sense. 3 miles from New York City, a slam dunk can't miss casino, probably the most lucrative in North America.
Yeah, I mean, I've met with the 2 big companies, Caesars and MGM. I've spoken with Morris, who owns resorts, who's a friend of mine, and I think one other through an outside connection. So yeah, I mean, I think that anyone would recognize that we have the best location, and not only the best location physically, but from a standpoint of approvals, you don't have to deal with the local community. People don't live here. I don't think traffic is an issue. I mean, they get 80,000 people to a football game. I think you could get a couple thousand people, into a casino, and they don't all come at once. So I think clearly we have the ideal location.
What is the bid timeline for a license approval? Do you see this being kind of a fast-track thing if the referendum passes, or are we looking at another year or so before a casino's up?
We don't know. The first order of business, they need companion legislation that would establish the tax rate and the criteria for how the selection is done. And there's a debate about whether that will come before the referendum or after. I have no way of knowing. I have no control over that. And then once that happens, then I assume they would say who is going to be responsible to make that selection. Will it be the gaming commission in Atlantic City, or a new, like New York had a separate site selection committee? So that all has to be determined. And then once that's determined, then that group would set the criteria for how to apply for a license. So hopefully it's sooner rather than later. I know the state needs the money, so I don't think they're going to wait around too long.
And speaking of money, the estimates, as you mentioned earlier, $400 to $500 million in tax revenue generated. I'm a resident of the state of New Jersey. My property taxes can't go up anymore. This state needs this for everything, for senior citizens, for education, so many of the pensions, feel-good programs. I mean, where else are they going to get the money? I mean, this just makes the most sense.
Yeah, but it basically, the way it's designed, A significant percentage would go to Atlantic City to help rebuild for the first 15 years, and then another significant percentage would go to help seniors. But then, in theory, it does help other issues because right now, money is going to seniors from the regular budget, so they'd be able to use this money. Because basically, when Atlantic City was in its heyday, they generated about $500 million for seniors. Now they're generating only $200 million for seniors. So you look at it, all 8 of them only generate $200 million. So just one casino here would generate twice as much as all 8 of them generate.
And we're certainly hoping this will benefit the horse racing industry in New Jersey in a big way. Now, I've heard different percentages, possibly 2% going to the industry. Is that, in fact, the number, or do you see that changing, or what do you think?
Well, the only thing we know for sure is that it says a minimum of 2% has to be dedicated to horse racing purses, and that would be divided up between the standardbreds and the thoroughbreds. So that's guaranteed, and then I guess it would be up to the horse industry to lobby the legislature to convince them that when they finally put this law in place that there's more than 2%. Obviously we know that in New York it's 10%, in Pennsylvania it's 11%, Ohio I think it's 10%, so 2% is not much, but that's what we're dealing with.
What can horse racing fans, people involved in the harness industry, what can we do on a grassroots level to try to get this through?
Well, obviously you got to reach out to your local legislative elected officials and make it clear that A, you support the referendum, and B, you'd like to see more than 2% go to horse racing, because you know it's a drop in the bucket. And then make sure that anybody who works for you, you know, is a registered voter, so that when November 7th comes around, or 8th, I'm not sure what it is, that everyone that works in our industry, at a bare minimum, we can count on their vote, and then get your friends and relatives and ask them, because a lot of people probably won't have an opinion one way or another. But if they see that it's important to someone close to them or a neighbor, you know, they'll probably vote for it. So that's what we need.
This building was somewhat designed with perhaps a casino in mind. If you would get the license here at the Meadowlands, how soon do you think you'd be up and running?
I think what we would do is we would build a separate building for the simulcast customers that are to our left, and move them out, and then replace them with slot machines and table games. And that would be like a temporary fix. I mean, ultimately, this building would be connected to another building that would be the main facility. Under the law, we're obligated to spend $1 billion, so it's not going to be a rinky-dink facility, but our goal would be to move the simulcast customers out, other than the VIP. We would keep the VIP the way it is. It's got a separate entrance on the side, so we would leave our VIP customers where they are, but our regular simulcast customers, we would give them a new home, and I don't think they'll mind. You know, the feeling you get was they like the old building better than the new building. Why, I don't know. So, you know, they just want to have the convenience of all the TV screens and good food and a bar and tellers, so that we can provide, and but that would be the goal, so that another ability for us to convince people to team up with us is we could be open so much sooner than anybody else.
Now, this has been a long and personal struggle for you to try to get this legislation through, just to make the casino happen and to get the ball rolling. Probably has taken a lot longer than you thought. Do you feel like this is a real positive thing, like finally we're over the hump?
I think so. I mean, I think that the governor is behind it. The legislative leaders are behind it. It passed fairly easily. Probably, I think about 3/4 of the people voted, so you could assume that they'll ask their constituents. And, you know, it's basically, and the thing that I find depressing, this is the only hope Atlantic City has. If this goes down, they go down. Because the fact is, they're going to be getting hundreds of millions of dollars to rebuild the city. And if they don't get our hundreds of billions, there's nobody else giving them hundreds of millions of dollars. So Atlantic City will just stay the way it is and gradually sink into the sand, or they can go along here and we'll give them the ability to rebuild that beautiful city. And look, I think they have to reinvent themselves. I think it's a place, maybe one or two of the more casinos may close. I don't know. We project about 20% of the revenue going there would be diverted. It's not a lot. Most of our customers would come from New York and Pennsylvania. And that money is never, so you have a choice. Do nothing, leave it the way it is. New York has got 7 casino licenses to give out. Pennsylvania's up and running, and you get nothing. Or let them put a casino here, and you get $200 million a year for 15 years. And even at the end, they still get like another 25 million forever under the bill. So even when the 15 and it kind of slowly slides down, there's a permanent 25 million a year going to Atlantic City. It's a no-brainer, but it's very hard. Their visceral reactions. Oh, this is terrible. This is terrible. This is the only hope they have. This thing goes down, they go down with it, and they either figure that out or they campaign against it. I hope they will figure it out because it's obvious, to be honest with you.
Yeah, the dollars certainly add up. No question about that. Jeff, the most exciting news and the best news we've had at the Meadowlands in a long time about our potential future. Thank you very much for the update, and hopefully we'll have some more good news to report very soon.
Sounds good, Sam. Thanks.